Everyone's health journey is different, and those experiences and the complexity of chronic diseases like Lyme disease and endometriosis can bring up immense challenges. Embracing a holistic, personalized approach to wellness, our guest today is healed from both and went on to become a wellness coach, personal trainer, and yoga teacher. She's committed to providing accessible wellness plans that blend fitness, functional nutrition, and mindfulness for individuals seeking a healthier lifestyle. This is the story of reclaiming your health with Kim Strother. Kim, so nice to have you on.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and chat with you.
And I want to kind of like correct myself almost in that intro because we said healed from, and we were just talking, is anyone truly healed from anything? And are we always healing? Is it your kind of understanding now that you've been through chronic disease that you will always be on a healing journey?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Always on this healing journey. And I take it day by day. And there are good days and there are bad days. And very much have learned that healing is not a linear path. And that, it is a life's work and mission. And that is why I am so, have my routine of the way that I eat and the things that I do physically, meditation. I have all of these rituals and routines that I do to keep me feeling as best as I possibly can throughout this journey. And I know it is a lifestyle at this point, and it will carry me through.
Well, that's where I want to kind of like hit a lot on today. You're doing amazing work in the health and wellness space, but I want to bring that truthful aspect that disease can happen to anyone regardless. In a sense, it's not this sort of, oh, I was in a terrible state and then that's why it happened, or, it's just something that happens to everyone also. That's not a truthful statement. But if we could go back to 2013 for you, where this sort of started, and you could kind of break down where you started to find these issues with your health and what that journey was like when it started.
Yeah, absolutely. 2013, I was at my worst. I was having chronic sinus infections and upper respiratory infections, terrible ringing in my ears, fatigue that was, and as you and I said earlier, sleeping 11, 12 hours and still feeling exhausted. My eyes would be swollen. I was having terrible GI issues. My stomach, I looked like I swallowed a basketball. I was having rashes up my side. I was also being pumped with antibiotics and steroids. I was, chasing all of these symptoms. I was also having migraines and seeing a neurologist for that. And certainly every ENT I saw was, I was truly on antibiotics once a month and steroid injections and a taper of prednisone pills as well. And so then I had candida. So I was also dealing with those issues and was really chasing this vicious cycle and going to multiple doctors, and yet no one was really talking to each other. Like my general care wasn't talking to my neurologist, it was talking to my ENT. So I was kind of seeking out all of these symptoms separately.
Yeah.
And granted, my white blood cell count was really low, and I had doctors tell me they thought that I had leukemia. I had plenty of doctors tell me that I was crazy and it was in my head and I needed to go on antidepressants. And when that was said, I would often cry.
Yeah.
And cry out of frustration more than I was crying out of depression. And then of course they were like, see, you need to go, you're depressed and you need to go on antidepressants. And I will say at one point during this journey, I went on Wellbutrin for 6 months, and it helped, cut the desperation that I was living with, because I truly was like, I can't live like this. It was awful. I, was a very healthy person. I was doing triathlons. I was personal training. I was fitness modeling at the time and was doing backflips in magazines. And like, I was supposed to be this picture of health. And quietly on the inside, I felt like dying. Like it was so awful and so hard. And so I will say the Wellbutrin helped with like that piece, but I was still sick. And after 6 months of being on it and feeling like it certainly numbed my personality, I was like, okay, like I'm still sick. Maybe I'm a little happier or less stressed about what's going on. I did wean myself off of the Wellbutrin and very much had this mission to figure out what was wrong with me. I will say I opened many credit cards and saw many doctors that didn't take insurance because I just knew I wasn't crazy. I knew there was something wrong with me and I knew there had to be an answer, and I was hell bent on finding it. So when I finally got diagnosed with Lyme, I remember I felt like it was this huge relief, like, wow, I'm not crazy. I have Lyme disease. Granted, yes, I had like crazy candida issues as well, from all the antibiotics, but then I was put on more antibiotics for 9 months,
Right.
which really didn't help. But I realized quickly with that Lyme disease diagnosis, like I thought, wow, like, okay, I have Lyme, there's a diagnosis and there's a treatment and there's a cure and I'm going to feel better. And I quickly realized that wasn't necessarily true, that, healing from Lyme is so different for everyone, and I truly believe I had it. I was hospitalized as a kid. We had a Christmas tree farm, so we had ticks on us all the time. My father had Lyme at one point. So, and I was hospitalized for 2 weeks as a kid. And I did have bouts of fatigue in high school and college. And as I got older, and bringing us back to 2013, it was just a multitude of symptoms that were, finally catching up with each other and then all really being present at once. And so getting to that place and, again, feeling like I had this answer with Lyme it was helpful in that I knew it wasn't crazy. And again, I had enough doctors say to me that I was. And so it was nice to feel like, wow, like, okay, I'm not insane. I didn't make this up. I didn't cause this illness myself. And then started really on a whole new life in healing from Lyme. And currently where I am today. And I credit a lot of those changes to feeling better and being able to maintain feeling well. And like you and I spoke before too, like I've currently had some things happen that I have been feeling off and have, been feeling more tired than I would like to be. And like we said, it's kind of this never ending process. It's a life's journey of healing when you have chronic illness. But I do still, even in the moments where I don't feel well, I always come back to my nutrition. I always come back to my meditation. Those are the things that give me hope. And I have to constantly remind myself that this is just a window in time and that I will get through this. And it was also so much worse in 2013 that, I'm grateful even on the days I don't feel well that I still feel better than I did, thanks to the things I implement in my life every single day.
Kim, when I listen to that, I hear, of course, your own personal story, but I hear so many Lyme disease patient stories. And I will say, like, Lyme journey is this one of education and truly understanding a lot of things that you wouldn't unless you actually went through it. That
Yeah.
idea of going to so many doctors who are the experts, who know what they're
Mm-hmm.
talking about, who you should listen to, and then telling you it's in your head, right? And just being
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, this is just painful to hear that. I've heard
Yeah.
that from so many people, and it is such a frustrating thing for so many patients to be like, I know something's wrong. I know
Yeah.
this isn't in my head. I was a healthy person. This isn't normal. And yet it's sort of, you go from doctor to doctor to doctor, and you get
Yeah.
so desperate sometimes, I hear from these Lyme patients, and
Yeah.
it really makes you take things into your own hands. You have to become
Absolutely.
your own best advocate. And the journey then is, how do I do that? And you just start researching. Did you go down like several rabbit holes?
Oh
Tell us
yeah.
about, like, what was one of your best rabbit holes that you can remember?
Oh my goodness. Like so many. And like
Yeah.
you said, it's like you become your own advocate. And so you get, certainly wrapped into diet was a huge part of it. I was doing colonics for a
Hmm.
crazy period of time. And again, like I believe in everything in moderation, and finding what's best for your body specifically. Oh my goodness. I flew to Canada. I saw a doctor and like he had me doing really interesting things and sitting in front of weird red light machines. And I mean, I was in many rabbit holes and really like doing all of them at the same time. So it's all, sometimes people are like, what worked best? And it's a little hard for me to say because I did so many things at once. If one person said to me like, hey, I had Lyme and this worked, I tried it. The only thing I didn't try was bee venom therapy because I'm kind of afraid of bugs. And so
You
me
know they
stinging
have
myself with
synthetic
a bee.
or like natural ways to inject it now because we've done bee
Really?
venom therapy. My father did that many years ago. You actually don't need the bees anymore.
Okay, I'm coming to see you guys because that was like the only thing I couldn't get over with that one. But yeah, I went down many rabbit holes with again colonics, saunas, infrared light, just trying to heal. And really, like I think the biggest one that I went down and that still sticks with me is nutrition for sure.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
and I was, I didn't eat meat for 16 years. And so, which is funny too, because when I had bouts of fatigue in high school and in college, and certainly my mom was involved very much with my health, doctors would tell my mom, oh, she doesn't eat meat. That's why she's tired. She needs to eat meat. And truly, that obviously wasn't it. It was Lyme. However, when I did get super sick and eventually found my way to Dr. Frank Littman in the city, his biggest thing to me, because then I went from all the antibiotics and steroids for the upper respiratory and sinus infection to then doxycyclines for 9 months straight. And I had yeast coating my sinus cavity. My candida was through the roof. I truly lost my memory. I would run into people on the street and knew that I knew them, but had no clue where I met them, what their name was. I would actually write down where I was going because I often would be midway down a block and not remember where I was going. That's how bad my memory was, which I did do neurofeedback for a while, which did really help. But it was really changing my diet and doing a really strict Candida protocol. And Dr. Littman was like, you need to eat only green vegetables and protein. And I was like, well, I don't eat meat. And he said, you'll either be really hungry eating only green vegetables or you'll start eating meat again. And that night I had a filet mignon and some green vegetables and it changed my life. Like it really within 2 weeks of doing that super strict. I mean, granted, I did have die off, but like I felt like I could think again.
Yeah.
And just that, I was like, how did this happen? I ate healthy before. I didn't eat meat. I ate a ton of fruits and veggies. I mean, granted, I ate a lot of grains, but gluten-free grains because I was having so many stomach issues. And it was so amazing to me that just simply changing my diet could help me feel so much better. And then that spun me into a rabbit hole of kind of going down the nutrition path and certainly ended up doing my certification through the Institute of Integrated Nutrition because I just wanted to know more. And then also I think in going through this, like a lot of other people that have a chronic illness and you do become your own advocate. And granted, I was already personal training. I was like, if I can feel better by doing this, how can I help other people feel better also?
Another common thing for anyone that's gone through is paying it forward, right? I've
Yeah.
seen people start foundations, write books, do that, and
Yeah.
become experts in helping others. And I feel like that is part of the journey, right? When you're
100%.
healing, you go through a transformation yourself that is much deeper that I say, and I will say medicine gets it wrong that their level of success is relief of symptoms. I
Right.
think it's like truly transforming your life for the better, which
Yeah.
includes sometimes changing career or going into and sharing all of the things you've learned, which really is so much, right?
Yeah.
And you go into the diet, you learn these things, you keep learning, you go to the IA and then you go into paying that forward. But again, it doesn't mean that you are suddenly at this epitome of health because you yourself,
Right.
got through the Lyme and then boom, endometriosis, right?
Yeah. And that was like, I think, talk about like a PTSD moment of like having that, come up. And I found out that I had endo basically because I decided to freeze my eggs. And through the process of freezing my egg, which weirdly, I was having all these symptoms of endo, and no one ever said endometriosis to me. I had ovarian cyst rupture. I was having this horrific pain on my left side. I'd even gone to the emergency room to St. John's in LA. And my pain was so bad in my left side, I was throwing up, and I had a migraine. And the emergency room doctor put on my discharge papers that I needed to see a psychiatrist. And I was like, I cannot believe I'm back here, and this was not even 2 years ago. And I really thought about writing a letter to St. John. I didn't, but I wanted to. However, I, ended up through freezing my eggs, the hormones certainly irritated this cyst, this endometrioma on my left ovary. And it was my fertility doctor that was like, this is endometriosis. And I just couldn't believe I had polyps removed a year prior. I had an ectopic pregnancy before, which is a huge symptom of having endo. And no one ever strung these things together. And no one ever said, and I did pelvic floor PT, which is often not talked about. I did things to kind of heal or help with this pain or these symptoms, but no one ever said endometriosis. And it took, Dr. Hancock at Spring Fertility, and I swear she's an angel and she really took the time after we did my retrieval to see if this was in fact endo. And of course I shared with her I had an ectopic pregnancy, and she was like, you probably have endo in your fallopian tube. And then we did a test that was not comfortable to push dye through my tube. And in fact, it was blocked. And when I did have my surgery at the end of November, I did lose that left fallopian tube. I also had endo in the right side, but they cleared it, which I had no idea I had it there. And I did remove that cyst on the left side. I had a cyst on the right side and a tumor in my uterus, fibroid tumor that I didn't even know that I had. And granted, endo on my intestines, which explains a lot of the GI issues. And again, I was always treating this pain on my left side as a GI issue and seeing, again, every specialist you could think of and trying every thing you could do for, obviously I kept getting SIBO, but SIBO and endo are linked, and no one said it. And it still baffled me how in the medical field, like no one talks to each other and kind of pieces all these symptoms together, and how much could be solved if we look at the whole picture of our health and not just chase these specific symptoms.
It's wild to me that still this day and age, with so many people young people going through things like endometriosis, Lyme, PCOS, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, right? These mysterious conditions that people can't seem, that we still focus so much on the conventional side on specialties. And that you're right, no one's talking to each other. They're just like, go see the gastroenterologist. No, go see the reproductive. And it's like, well, why don't you guys get together and share and be like, oh, maybe it's both. Because the body doesn't work like a machine of just like one thing at a time. And disease doesn't work where it's just really, really just right there and that's it. It's like your body's trying to compensate and keep you healthy all the time. Trillions of interactions every second are trying to keep you alive and healthy. And so you have to, I mean, what's your relationship right now with like conventional medicine and doctors in general? I mean, St. John's obviously isn't at the top of your list to go to, right?
No, it is not the one. It is a tricky one for me because, and again, like having this, I will say after my endometriosis surgery, which was November 30th, I ended up right before finding out that my SIBO was in fact back. I was having bloating again. And definitely I have moments when I have flare-ups, when I don't feel well, that a few different things happen. I panic and I'm like, oh my God, it's back. And is it Lyme? Is it SIBO? Is it my hormones? Like I really can feel myself like start to spin, that like tornado comes back of like, what is this? How do I solve this? What doctor do I go see now? And then I have to like take many breaths and remind myself to breathe and that I will sort this out. And, it's never overnight. That's for sure. And then, so I did, after my surgery, end up doing, 2 weeks of Xifaxan, which is an antibiotic specifically for SIBO. And I was really hesitant about doing it, but my SIBO was pretty bad that I was like, okay, I'm going to, I did the surgery. I'm going to do this round of Xifaxan and I will feel better. Like it will be the answer. And currently it hasn't been the answer. And I get a little upset sometimes because, right, like I do eat a paleo diet, so no
Yeah.
sugar, no dairy, no grains. And because I feel my best on it, because I keep inflammation at bay, I have lots of turmeric and ginger. I focus on my sleep. I do my meditation. I have all my biohacking things I do. And I really feel like I live this lifestyle that sometimes when I have these moments of not feeling well, I get in this weird like shame spiral
Yeah.
or like feel
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm a fraud. Like, how
Yeah.
am I not healthy when I live this way? And weirdly enough, I had a woman send me a nasty, but it wasn't a nice comment today on my Instagram about my smoothie and how it looked disgusting and how no one should eat like that. And I'm like, and I just like, our health is hard enough. And until you've
Yeah.
walked in someone else's shoes, especially someone with chronic illness, like don't judge. And
Absolutely.
and yes, like I am meticulous with the way that I live my life. I mean, sure, I am also human. And if I'm somewhere and there's a piece of cake that looks delicious, yeah, I might have it
Yeah.
occasionally. But like I I really live this way because I do feel my best. And when I have those moments where I'm like, oh my God, how is this happening again? Like, thanks to my therapist, that I love, I really have to like come back to that like self-love and compassion because I can be hard on myself and be like, how is this happening again? Why am I not feeling this way? Like, how can I be helping other people feel better? And I'm not even feeling good myself. And I have to remind myself that I'm human
Yeah.
and that I do have a chronic illness and, you know, living the way, and I think this really happened with endo too, as when I got the diagnosis, I definitely cried. And I remember my fertility doctor was like, oh my God, like what's wrong? And I wasn't crying again because I was sad. It was just like the relief of,
Hmm.
I know what it is now and I'm not
Hmm.
crazy and it's not in my head. And, we can kind of have a new plan to figure this out. But I really also thought to myself, like, wow, if I didn't eat an anti-inflammatory diet and I didn't focus on my health and move my body and
Yeah.
meditate, what would my endo have been like then? Right. So, like, even though I had it and even though I had to go through surgery and I lived this healthy lifestyle, like, what would my health have been like if I didn't do this? So instead of beating myself up for like, why is this happening again? I mean, granted, that kicks in at first and then I have to pull back and remind myself like, no, I am taking care of myself and I'm feeling the best that I can in this life, and living the way that I live has reduced these symptoms because who knows, maybe I would have had surgery a long time ago, or maybe I would have had more cysts burst or,
Hmm.
ended up in the emergency room or had worse complications from that ectopic pregnancy. And so I think I just have to remind myself that coming back to those daily practices is what keeps me feeling my best and is going to give me, the longevity with my health of like feeling the best I can through this healing process.
Yeah, I'm really happy we're having this kind of brutally honest take on this because I do feel I see this too, even in myself. And anyone that works in health medicine is just expected to be like purely healthy all the time, right?
Right.
And I sometimes feel that shame also. Like I told you, I'm currently living at a medical center, like, one of the world renowned, we're seeing like patients from around the world. And I sometimes like just feel like shit. I just get
Yeah.
sick sometimes myself. I stress out. I'm not eating, and people just expect like, dude, you live in how could you get sick? It must mean it's
Right.
not working. Like your
Right.
approach is like wrong or so. It's like,
Totally.
oh no. And now I don't feel like telling anyone ever anything about this, but you want to be honest that
Right.
everyone deals with stuff, right? We all do. The healthiest
Yeah.
people I've seen in the world, the gurus in spirituality have depressive thoughts, have
Totally.
issues. And we got to be kind with ourselves, right? And we got to
Mm-hmm.
be able to show ourselves that, because that is part of the healing process. I do think what we go through is always a lesson, whether it's disease, whether it's the
Agreed.
thoughts we go through. Obviously, after you go through a disease, you have, like we said, that PTSD, that cellular memory of like,
Yeah.
that was hard. I don't want to go through that again. I'm scared
Yeah.
shitless because I'm starting to feel again, even a little bit of what
Yeah.
that was like. And suddenly I'm panicking. And
Yeah.
suddenly I'm like, what the hell? I can't believe this is happening again. But I
Yeah.
do think those are also lessons along the journey to kind of to let go, to suddenly take that deep breath, as you said, and
Yeah.
take a step back and take notice. What's going on here? Is this truly like that? Or is this another lesson teaching me to evolve and become better and healthier and happier and everything? So, when you have someone like yourself that is such an expert and a pivotal person within this space, being able to freely talk about and be like, it's not easy, not always healthy every day, like have my
Yeah.
moments too, dealing with stuff. That is the honest take of what health is, though. It's still making
Yeah.
those choices. And like you said, imagine you hadn't done some of the things you were doing, or a lot, and that's
Right.
most of the population. So when
Yeah.
I speak to just people that don't even believe in a lot of the things that we do, and detox is BS, eating that way, who cares? And I
Right.
hear what they're going through, it's like, man, that sounds like a tough life. I
Yeah.
mean, that could have been much worse if you
Yeah.
didn't go through those things. Do you meet people like that where they have a hard time understanding you because you are in this field of health and wellness, yet you're dealing with it, and like you said, could use it against you? Is
Oh,
that
yeah.
something like you bump into and have to deal with as well?
Yeah, I mean, I will say I feel like I'm lucky in that a lot of the people I have a lot of people I work with that also have, health issues or chronic illness. And so I think there's like community in that where
Yeah,
I've kind of built a community of people that understand, which is wonderful. But I absolutely, especially on social media, will get those jabs from time to time. And again, I feel lucky in that for the most part, the feedback is pretty positive. And I've also worked with so many people that feel so much better after, and, and kind of can share their own story as well of how much it helped. But yeah, there's definitely people that will challenge me or want to ridicule me and think that I don't eat or I have an eating disorder because of the way I eat. I'm like, it's wild to me too, and maybe that's just like the human experience to pick people apart. And until you walked in someone else's shoes,
yeah,
you don't know. And I understand that unless you've had chronic illness, you have no idea what it feels like.
no,
And
yeah,
I think, and I'm happy. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I would never want anyone to feel this way or go through the things that I have felt. And so I think if we could all be a little more compassionate towards each other and maybe don't look so at the surface level and understand why people do the things they do, but you know,
yeah. No, and that's why I think it's so important to share these stories, because you have no clue what anyone's going through. You will never be able to truly understand anyone's chronic illness and how bad it's gotten. Even the story you're hearing right
yeah,
now, that's not enough to truly be able to experience it. That's your experience.
right.
But that you're doing the work, that you're making choices to put health first. I think that's what
Yeah.
needs to be respected in it all, regardless of where you are. And yeah, I think a lot of people just troll because they're probably unhealthy and not doing the choices and not taking action, not
Right.
putting health first. And it's very easy to knock someone down. It's very hard to do the
Yeah.
things that are healthy.
Right. Agreed. And yeah, and sometimes sure, like maybe it's that lovely mirror effect that it makes them
I
feel
think so.
bad.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I've
And
I've learned
so
like everything that like I've put out into the world through via social media or anything, that I will then receive something and get a reaction to. That's my lesson. As much as it
yeah.
is like hurtful in that person's like, I think it's
Yeah.
really like there for a reason. I have to stop and be like, why am I
Totally.
triggered by this, right? And what is the
Absolutely.
lesson? And even this conversation going on right now, I'll process
Yeah.
this later and be like, I got a lot out of that, and that was directed at me, right? So
Yeah.
I think everyone could pull lessons out of it and find what's directed at them. And I think that's a wonderful way of looking at and always being able to take the step forward in your health and happiness. But
Yeah.
you're working with so many different people. You're working with Melissa Wood and her group, and you're doing
Mhm.
so much to help people. What's the approach you're taking? Because I know it's a very holistic one, but if you could share with the audience sort of how you go about working with clients and helping others.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I work with clients personally, I really make an emphasis on finding what's right for them. And certainly you can look at my social media or even some of the classes that I'm teaching, on Melissa Wood Health, which of course, like they're all great, but that doesn't mean that they're right for everyone at that point in their
Yeah.
life. So I think when I work with people individually, the biggest emphasis is on how they're feeling currently. Well, what's worked, what hasn't. Are they dealing with chronic illness? Are they vegan? Are they do they eat meat, and finding something that works for them, because what has worked for me might not work for you.
Hmm.
And so I really think that is like the biggest thing that I say with there's not a one size fits all. So when I work with someone on an individual basis, that is number one for me, is figuring out their health history, where they are now, what their goals are, how they're feeling, and then creating both a movement plan and a nutrition plan for them that's sustainable, that feels good, that's not overwhelming, that's an attainable thing that they will enjoy doing. Yes, of course, changing your diet, implementing workouts can be hard or
Hmm.
daunting, and so really giving people the support and again having them feel good about what they're doing, like moving in ways that feels good. Like if someone hates running, I'm not making you run. Like,
Yeah.
so we're, again, like I've been a trainer for over 20 years at this point. And of course, when I first started training in my 20s, it was like, everybody should run, but thank
Right.
God I've evolved. And, that's not the answer. And some
Yeah.
people do love to run, and then great, move your body in that way. But, again, finding movement that really feels good. And I try as well on the app to give a wide range of workouts. I do HIIT style workouts with, heavier weights. And then I also do light weights and yoga sculpt. So I try to give a wide variety of classes so that people can, again, find what works for them. And for me personally, it's a balance of all of them. And again, if that feels good to someone, like I really encourage kind of moving in different ways and figuring out what feels the best and what's the balance of all of those things.
Yeah, I really love that idea, of course, of number one, personalization, but also using the intuition, what is resonating
Mhm.
with you. Because I feel
Yeah.
too many people are looking for answers outside of them. They're looking probably
Yeah.
at you to say, what exactly do I need to do? And a lot of
Yeah.
people out there are utilizing their own personal experience and then sharing that as the answer when it
Right.
was their
Yeah.
answer, not the answer for everyone. If it was, we'd all be healthy and doing that thing,
Totally.
but we're
Yeah.
not. So we have to be, again, brutally honest with ourselves and say, listen, my answer is going to be different, but I could pull a lot of good things out of
Yeah.
learning from someone like yourself and then applying it my way to the
Yeah.
healing journey and to optimizing health.
Yeah.
You mentioned biohacks earlier. Like what are some of your favorite biohacks, as you could call them, or healthy things that you do maybe on a daily
Yeah.
basis?
Okay. One thing that I'm really obsessed with and I started wearing it in 2020 is the Apollo Neuro. Do you know that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's a bracelet. It emits a vibration. I was having sleep issues. Shocking. Even though I can sleep a lot, I was having issues falling asleep. And so I really got the Apollo to help me with sleep. And it
Yeah.
helped, but it was funny. There's multiple settings on it. And one day, out of boredom, really, I was like, let me put this on the focus setting. I accomplished so much that day. And
Mm.
I was like, what happened? And I definitely have ADD for sure. And so I couldn't believe like how much that focus setting really helped me. And I've never looked back. So I wear it during the day on the focus setting. It's currently charging right now. I wear
Mm,
it to sleep at night. Certainly if I've done like a hard workout or travel, I put it on the recovery setting. When I wake up in the morning, I switch it to the good morning setting, which is new and nice, and it like eases you into the day. And I just like, I think for me personally, run a little anxious and a little scattered.
most
It
people do.
yeah. So it really helps calm my nervous system. And
Mm.
that right now is my number one thing.
I love that you bring that up because I feel like a lot of people listen, you could have went a lot of different answers. Obviously, nutrition and movement are
Yeah.
huge ones in your world, and it should be in anyone's world. But
Yeah.
that idea of balancing your ANS, your
Yeah.
autonomic nervous system, because so many of us live on like full stream fight or flight sympathetic system all day into the night, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
like nonstop saber-tooth tiger around every single corner for some reason, even though we know it's
Literally.
not there, but that's how we
Uh,
live.
I don't know. Sometimes living in New York City, I'm like, it's
I will,
there.
yes, I will second that. The beeping and the
Yeah.
people around you and yeah,
Yeah.
screaming. Yeah. You don't even
Yeah.
realize it. I've learned this 20 years living in the city. You don't realize like you don't get phased usually by like loud
Yeah.
sounds when you live in the city, but your
Totally.
nervous system does. Whether you
Yeah.
realize it or not, you have an uptick. You have
Total range.
parasympathetic activation. I mean sympathetic, and then you
Yeah.
don't have balance. Your cortisol
Yeah.
levels, you get adrenal fatigue, right? So finding
Absolutely.
little ways to balance it and give you more parasympathetic. And yes, technology is
Yeah.
wonderful for that.
It
So
is. Yeah.
I'm really grateful you were able to bring that up because too many people like totally avoid this idea of like, who
Yeah.
care? Like, let me just eat healthy and work out and I'll be good. And it's like that's not everything. There's a lot
No.
more to health.
Oh my God, so much more. And also like in conjunction with that, breath work is such a game changer
Hmm.
for me. So like not just meditation, but again, dropping me back into my parasympathetic nervous system and like focusing on my breath with such, and that one again doesn't cost anything. And I think
Nothing.
so
Yeah.
often overlooked. I'm just like, I catch myself during the day or even at night when I still might not fall asleep, like, okay, just take a
Yeah.
deep breath
Right.
and how much that can change everything, everything just calms down and gets a little like quieter. And we have the ability to do that because again, if you're in fight or flight, your cortisol's through the roof. Doesn't
Oh
matter
yeah.
really what you're eating at that point.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
And you can't truly digest, meaning peristalsis, release of bile, all these things. If you're in a sympathetic state, that doesn't happen. You'll have poor digestion, you might have constipation, this and that. So it's like
yeah,
that too is important. It's not just what you eat, it's how are you in a restful state? And if you need to take those
100%.
3 deep breaths, everyone should before they eat. Just
Yeah,
3 breaths, that's all it takes to reset. And then just
yeah,
like say a little like grace or gratitude while you eat
literally.
that'll
Yeah,
keep you in a good mood and not release the cortisol right away if you're eating and watching something stressful out in the world.
100%. Yeah. And it's those little things that are, whether they're rituals or they're routines or practices, however you want to call them, they make such a difference when you piece
Such a
them all
difference.
together and like
Yeah.
put them throughout your day. And it's
It's
a lifestyle and it's a life changer, really.
absolutely like it's one of my favorite quotes. It's the little thing. There's nothing bigger from Vanilla Sky. It's like, yeah,
Hmm.
there is nothing bigger than the little things. And that's what we have to
Yeah.
kind of sometimes focus on, especially when to be healthy. Kim, when you look forward at like the state of the health and wellness field, like what are you excited about? What are you kind of focusing on right now in the future?
Yeah. I am excited. I feel like people are paying more attention to their health.
They are.
And yeah, and so
You got to.
yeah, you have to. And I think that like, functional medicine seems and longevity seem to be like a bigger conversation than ever before. And so that feels exciting that people are really looking at, taking their health into their own hands. And certainly if we're looking, at longevity, again, it comes back right to nutrition. That's like one of the biggest things, the best things that we can do for ourselves. So I think that as a society, we're curious and we want to
Mm,
feel better. We want to live longer, not only live longer, but feel better while we live longer.
yes.
And so I think that just feels exciting that we're becoming more conscious to how we're living our life, what we're putting in our body, who we're surrounding ourselves with. And And in that, I'm hoping too, like we're kinder to each other and we're just, working together as one because, life can be crazy sometimes. And so if we can support each other and help each other along the way to feel better, the world would honestly just be a better place.
Completely agree. I love that message. And I feel like the last few years, as wild and as crazy as they've been, have a silver lining. It forced us to look at our current state of health.
Yeah.
It forced us to kind of, see what are the things I'm going to do to improve this because I have to. It's my life.
Yeah.
It's everything, right? And
Yeah.
it's a big deal. So,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much for sharing that message with us.
Yeah,
Where
of
can people
course.
learn more about you, your work?
Oh my goodness. Probably Instagram is like somehow, at the forefront. So at Kim Strother on Instagram, kimstrother.com is my website, which has all of my offerings. And then certainly I am a creator on Melissa Wood Health. So if you're looking for, virtual classes, you can find me on Melissa Wood Health as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And again, looking forward to seeing you a few weeks at the event.
I
You'll
know.
be
I
there
can't
too.
wait.
That's the good
Can't
thing of
wait.
being in the New York area. Get to go to these amazing events that are out there and really looking forward to that.
Totally. Same.
Thank
Well,
you,
thank
Kim.
you so much for having me. And I will say, like, I do think health is contagious so that when we continue to share and people start to feel better, that it just, moves the needle forward and gets other people interested in taking care of themselves. So like you having this podcast and talking to people to just bring more awareness is so huge. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we share in that mission, and I think it's a really important one. So I'm glad to be on that path with you.
Thank
And if
you.
you're listening, check out Kim Strother. That's KIMSTROTHER.com for more information. And until next time, continue writing your own healing story.